How important is a name? Does it really matter what we call things? Maybe it's just a title, but it could mean something deeper. Because a name can carry with it centuries of history and culture. It can reference events that happened thousands of years ago, tales from local folklore or ancient traditions. And it can tie a people's identity to a landscape. Most English people call this mountain, the highest mountain in Wales, Snowdon. But it has another Welsh name, much less known outside of Wales. Yr Wyddfa. And now, this mountain has found itself caught up in a fight to reclaim Welsh heritage and save a Celtic language from extinction. After making it over 1,000 kilometres on our bikes, we were cycling through the largest mountains in Wales. This is Snowdonia National Park. Every single one of Wales's 15 highest mountains is here, in an area around 823 square kilometres. The jagged peaks and twisting valleys are absolutely stunning. And it is, unsurprisingly, extremely hilly.
Yeah, look at him go!
So, hard on the legs, but potentially very good for Welsh identity. You see, indigenous languages, dialects, and cultures tend to thrive in mountainous regions, where populations are more isolated from neighbouring areas. That isolation means this is one of the most Welsh-speaking parts of Wales. Everything in Wales, from the mountains to the towns, has a Welsh name. And to be fair, some of them are pretty tough to pronounce if you don't speak the language. Just try and wrap your head around this one up in Anglesey. If you didn't catch that, let's hear it one more time. It's a bit of a mouthful, but all those challenging syllables has meant there's been a long track record of Welsh places being renamed with English names, usually by people who don't speak Welsh to make them easier to remember and pronounce. And this is where it becomes a problem, because it gradually removes Welsh heritage from the landscape. When a name vanishes, so does the story it tells. This is a lake not far from Yr Wyddfa. Some people call it Lake Australia because it supposedly looks like Australia from above, which, debatable. But the original Welsh name, Llyn Bochlwyd, translates to Lake of the Grey Cheek. According to local folklore, this is where a stag escaped a hunter by jumping from the mountainside into the water and swimming across, holding its grey cheeks above the surface to breathe. In Anglesey, just north of here, Porth Trecastell is called what it's called because Porth translates to gateway and Trecastell to a fort or castle that was once here. But its new English name is Cable Bay, because a cable was laid there a few years ago. That's a pretty charmless reason for a name. But people are starting to push back and demand the protection of Welsh place names. And John Pugh Roberts, a local councillor whose first language is Welsh, is one of those people.
Doesn't matter where you are in the world, really. There's a reason behind every name. Once you lose a name, you don't only lose a name, you lose history that's behind the name. We should really keep the language alive and keep the names alive, or else we're going to lose a big part of our heritage. When you change the names, the Welsh heritage is being lost.
The English names, Snowdonia and Snowdon, are thought to have come from the Saxon words for snow dune or snow hill. In Welsh, though, Yr Wyddfa means grave. Welsh folklore tells of a giant, Rhita Gawr, who once roamed the land. He attacked settlements and claimed the beards of defeated kings as trophies, sewing them into his cloak. His rampage continued until he was slain by the legendary King Arthur on the highest peak of the highest mountain. Originally, they called this place Rhitta, Rhitta's tomb, but over time, it came to be known as Yr Wyddfa, grave. That story lives on in the name, and John wants to keep that alive. At a meeting with the Snowdonia National Park Authority, the last thing he expected was to be making national headlines. But when he requested that the authority refer to Snowdonia and Snowdon only with their Welsh names, Eryri and Yr Wyddfa, the issue was thrust into the spotlight.
You know, I thought the members say, yeah, that's fair enough, we'll look into it. They didn't even discuss it. They not discussed it, I think it had been passed by now, and they won't be any hype about it. Because they went such a hype, you know, so the media got hold of it.
Frustrated by a lack of action, John started a petition, which received more than 5,000 signatures, and that caught the attention of the media. Now that it was out there, it was becoming a national debate. And John told us the vast majority of responses he's had have been positive. But from a quick search of some of the comments on these articles, it's clear that not everybody is on board.
People don't like changes to it, you know. And, you know, most people, they don't respect the Welsh language of the people in Wales either. So, you know, both goes together, don't they? It's all down to respect in the end. You know, if people respect the Welsh language and respect Welsh people, I can't see any problems at all.
But John doesn't want to stop at the names of mountains. He also wants to preserve the names of houses here too.
When you change house names, that's a part of the history here. If somebody wants to come here and change the names, I think it should be for only one generation. Whenever they leave the house, it'll have to come back to its original Welsh name. So once you change the name of the house, you don't only change the name of the house, but you lose lots of history behind the house's name as well. So that's with mountains, whatever you talk about really, in Eryri, it's part of history, isn't it?
The Welsh Government aims to have 1 million Welsh speakers by the middle of the century. They don't all have to be fluent, and that number currently stands at around 860,000, or 29% of the Welsh population, making it by far the most widely spoken Celtic language. And people like John feel that preserving the Welsh names of places goes hand in hand with this language revival effort. If people see Welsh names and the stories behind them, that increases interest in Welsh and encourages more people to learn it, and it moves Wales ever closer to that 1 million speakers goal. That target is only possible because of a growing realisation that we're at risk of losing the Celtic languages.
Wel ie, cos yn Gymru, da ni'n siarad Cymraeg a da ni gyd yn siarad Cymraeg efo'n gilydd, fatha adra ag yn ysgol, a wedyn yn gwaith a bob dim fel awi.
In Carnarvon, just outside the national park, Kira, a fluent Welsh speaker, told us about the growing acceptance of the Welsh language.
In the 80s or in the 70s, they predicted that the Welsh language was going to be a dead language by the turn of the millennium. The Welsh government, I think, then actively fought to keep it alive. It's not that far away either, where my grandmother, my nine is what I would call her, when she was growing up, she would be told off if she was speaking Welsh in front of an English speaker. And it would be considered rude to speak Welsh, even if they weren't in the conversation with you. She still does it, yeah. If I have friends from university or something that speak English, if I'm just speaking to my nine on the phone and she finds out that I'm in the same room as them, she'll change to English to try and make me change to English so that my friends don't feel like I'm being rude speaking a different language even though I'm not speaking to them. But that whole mentality sort of started to shift where it's a bit more like
it's okay.
It's okay to speak to your friends in Welsh.
Speaking Welsh in Wales. It's insane that was ever looked down upon. But the suppression of Welsh language and culture has a long history here. And even the name Wales indicates a degree of otherness. It's the English name for the country, and comes from an Anglo-Saxon term meaning foreigners or outsiders. The Welsh name for Wales is Cymru, which translates to fellow countrymen. So, in English, land of the outsiders, and in Welsh, land of the fellow countrymen. But now that steps are being taken to increase the number of Welsh speakers, it's becoming clearer how important the Welsh names of places are. Not only do they tell stories, but they also make the language visible. If we change them to English, all we're doing is erasing one of Europe's oldest languages, hill by hill, street by street, and house by house. And is it really worth sacrificing national heritage for a name that's easier for some people to pronounce? Because once it's gone, it will never come back.